Because of why I search the deep through endless nights, no time to sleep. The call inside I can't deny. I'll find the light because of why.
So, if you're involved in international business, you've definitely heard about the British Virgin Islands, or the BVI. For a long time, it's been the heavyweight champion of offshore companies. But the real question is, in today's world, should it be your go-to?
You see, for years, the BVI was sold as this perfect tax haven paradise, promising total privacy and super easy setup. But is that still the reality? Or has it kind of become a regulatory trap waiting to catch people off guard? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into.
All right, so first, let's talk about the BVI's big promise. I mean, what's the magic sauce here? What's the big allure that's managed to attract more than 360,000 companies? Let's take a look.
First off, you got to understand the scale. The BVI isn't some tiny, shady operation. It is a recognized powerhouse in the world of global finance. It's known for having modern laws, being politically stable, and using a legal system based on English common law, which is a huge plus for a lot of people. It's a trusted place for everything from brand new startups to massive corporate deals.
And this right here, this is basically the BVI dream in a nutshell. You get zero, and I mean zero, corporate income tax. No capital gains tax. Setting up a company is famously quick and painless. You get solid privacy protection, a super flexible company structure, and the running costs have always been pretty low. It's pretty easy to see the appeal, right?
Okay, but now it's time for a reality check. We have got to talk about the biggest myth out there, the idea of total, complete anonymity. And this is where we have to be really clear about the difference between privacy and secrecy.
And look, this distinction is absolutely crucial. Privacy, which the BVI does still offer, means your competitor or just some nosy person can't go online and look up who owns your company. It's not in a public database. But secrecy, that's a whole different game. That would mean your ownership is hidden from everyone, including the government and tax authorities. And, well, that's where things have really changed. So here's the bottom line. The era of the completely anonymous shell company is pretty much over. The BVI has been under a ton of international pressure from groups like the OECD and the EU. And because of that, they've had to roll out some major transparency laws that are really kicking in around 2025.
So here's what's actually different. Before, filing a list of your company's shareholders was basically optional. Now, it's mandatory. Same deal with the beneficial owners, the actual people who are really in control. That information now has to be filed directly with the government registrar. But, and this is key, take a look at that last row. Is it public? Nope. Still no.
And that's really the main takeaway on this. Your details are kept away from the prying eyes of the public and your competitors, which is still a huge advantage for a lot of businesses. But, and it's a big but, governments, tax authorities, and law enforcement can now get that info if they go through the proper channels. The BVI is basically walking a very, very fine line between privacy and transparency. All right, on to our second reality check. The myth of a zero-hassle experience. While setting up the company might seem simple on paper, actually running a BVI company these days, well, it comes with some pretty serious operational headaches that you really need to know about. This quote pretty much hits the nail on the head. This is probably the single biggest problem you'll face. Getting a business bank account for your BVI company is incredibly hard. Why? Well, whether it's fair or not, the BVI's reputation has been linked to some big financial scandals, and that makes the compliance departments at major banks extremely cautious. And that caution creates a whole nightmare list of problems. Your bank application is going to get put under a microscope, and there's a really high chance it'll just get rejected. Even if you do get an account, your payments will probably get flagged and frozen for screening all the time. Even big payment processors like Stripe or PayPal might just suspend your account with almost no warning. And those agents who offer banking assistance, they'll often charge you thousands of dollars with absolutely no guarantee of success.
Now, the next hurdle is something called economic substance. Basically, this is the government's way of fighting back against paper companies, the kind that are really just a mailing address. So, if your BVI company does certain kinds of business, you now have to prove that it has a real, genuine economic presence on the islands.
So what does that mean in the real world? It pretty much comes down to 3 tests. First, your company has to be directed and managed from the BVI, which means, yep, holding your board meetings there. Second, your main income-generating work has to physically happen in the BVI. And third, you need to have an adequate presence. We're talking actual offices and employees. So you can see how for an online entrepreneur or a global consultant, this becomes completely impractical really fast. And don't make the mistake of thinking this is just for some niche businesses. This rule applies to 9 different types of business activities, and they include really common things like holding companies, managing intellectual property, or finance and leasing businesses. Plus, you have to file a report every year to declare where you stand.
Okay, so let's talk about the cost. You'll see setup fees advertised somewhere in this range, about $1,500 to $2,500. And at first glance, you might think, that seems pretty reasonable.
But that initial fee, that's really just the starting line. You've got similar costs every single year just for renewal. Then you have to add in the potential thousands for that banking assistance we talked about, which, remember, isn't guaranteed. You'll probably need to pay for professional help with your annual returns and your economic substance reporting. And if you want to use nominee services for extra privacy, that's another recurring cost. It all starts to add up and can get way more expensive than it looks at first.
Okay, so we've looked at the promise, and we've looked at the pitfalls. Let's put it all together and get to the verdict. With all these new realities, who is a BVI company actually a good fit for in 2025 and beyond? It's all about matching the right structure to your strategy. So here's the breakdown. The BVI is still a fantastic choice for more complex setups. We're talking asset protection, holding companies for global investments, joint ventures, or even as a special vehicle for an IPO. On the other hand, you should seriously think about alternatives if you're an operating business, like an e-commerce store that needs fast, reliable banking every day. Or if you just can't meet those economic substance rules. Or even if you think your clients might be a little wary of dealing with an offshore company.
So I guess it leaves us with this one final thought. The BVI is trying to perform this really delicate tightrope walk between offering valuable privacy and meeting these new global demands for transparency. The question you have to ask yourself is, can your business balance on that same tightrope?
But hey, we'd love to know what you think. Have you ever used a BVI company or maybe considered it? Share your experiences and your opinions down in the comments section below. Let's get a good conversation going. And of course, if you found this explainer helpful, please give it a like, share it with someone who might need to see it, and definitely subscribe for more deep dives that help cut through all the noise.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.